Welcome to the first section of this course in which I will introduce you to cloud and cloud computing. So this section is not going to be hands-on, it's just some theory and some slides, but hopefully it will put some context into why the cloud is useful and how it works. So let's go back to the very basics. How do websites work? Well, we have a server hosted somewhere, and we as a web browser want to get access to that server to visualize a website. What we're going to do as a client is use a network between ourselves and the server. And the client will find the network and will use the network to route the packets, the data, into the server. Then the server will reply to us and we will get the response and we can view a website. Obviously that is very simplified, but that gives you an idea. Now for the clients to find the server and the server to find the clients, you need to have IP addresses. So a client have IP addresses and a server also have an IP address. And so the idea is that when you use an IP address, you can send a request to wherever you want to the server you want, and the server can know how to find you back. This is very similar to when you are writing some letters to your friends. For example, you would write a letter and that would be your data and you would be the client. Then when you send the letter, you put it in your mailbox, and then the network will be the network of the post office. Then the post office will use network and the address you put on the letter to route your letter to the destination, which is in this case, the server. And then if your correspondent wants to reply you back, they can use the address you put on the back of the envelope to write you back, and again, use the same network to get the letter back to you. So servers are just like the network of your mail. Hopefully that's a good analogy. So what is in a server? Well, a server is going to contain a CPU, and a CPU is a little piece that will be doing some computations. It will be very helpful to do some calculations and find results. And then your server also needs RAM or memory. This is going to be very, very fast memory, which will allow us to store information and retrieve it very quickly. So when we have a CPU and a memory bar, what do we get? Well, we get a brain. Think of your brain, right? When you are thinking, you are actually making computations. Very complicated ones, but they are computations. But then you need to retain some information, and again, we have memories, and these memories are in our brain. So if we think of the CPU and the RAM together, they sort of look like a brain. Now we also need to have some more long-term storage of data. Obviously, it's still in our brain as humans, but in computers, we have included some special storage to store data, for example, files. And then, if we want to store the data in a more structured way, we're going to use a database. And a database is going to be data formatted in a way that we can easily search it and query it. Finally, in the server, we're also going to have some networking aspect, okay? So it's going to be routers, switch, DNS servers, and don't worry, all these terms we'll be seeing them later on in this course. So in a server, we have an aspect of compute, memory, storage, maybe our server sometimes is a database, and we have a networking aspect. All these things are going to be super important going forward because the cloud is going to be giving these things for us on demand. So if we just want to define a little bit of IT terminology before we get started, the network is a bunch of cables, routers, and servers that are going to be connected with each other. And the router is a specific device that will forward the data packets between computers in the networks, and they will know where to send your packets on the internet, just like your post-delivery service. Now when we have a packet and it arrives at the destination, there's a switch. And the switch will send the packet to the correct client on your network. So if we put all these things together, it looks like this. Our client will send the data to a router, the router will find its way all the way to a switch, and the switch will know to which computer in your network to send the data to. So why do I introduce all these things? Well, let's go back to traditional IT. When people used to start websites or companies before, they used to do it in their home or their garage. And so they would literally go to the store, buy a server, and they put the server in their home. You may have seen TV shows, you may have read some documentation on the internet that describes, for example, how Google was made. You know, Google was started in a garage. Now, as your website grows, you need to add more and more servers to serve that demand. And so your home starts to be filled with servers. So this is bad, right? But your company is getting bigger, you're generating some money, so you're going to move to your own office and you decide to allocate a special room, which is going to be called a data center. In a data center, you're going to have, again, your servers, and you're going to be able to scale them by adding and purchasing more and more servers. Now this worked, and this worked for so many years, but there are a few problems with this approach. Number one is that when you have a data center or your own home, you're going to have to pay a rent. Then you're going to have to add power supply, cooling, and maintenance, because it does require some electricity to run your servers. It does require some cooling because the servers do get hot, and sometimes they break down, so you need someone to do the maintenance. On top of it, if you want to add or replace servers, it will take a lot of time because you have to order them, and then you have to hook them up in your center. Scaling is limited. If tomorrow you're getting 10 times bigger, you're going to need 10 times more servers, but you may not have the time or the space to do so. You also need to hire a team that is going to be there all the time, 24/7, to monitor the infrastructure in case something goes wrong. And what if there is a disaster? What if there's an earthquake? What if there's a power shutdown or even a fire? That would be bad, right? So can we externalize all this? And the answer is yes. And that will be the cloud. So I will see you in the next lecture to discuss a little bit more about the cloud.